Okay, so here's what I'm thinking. When you say June planting to most people, they picture themselves already behind, like they missed the window. Spring came and went, and now it's hot, and they're standing in their backyard going, well, I guess I'll try again next year. And that drives me a little crazy because honestly, June might actually be the better time to plant a lot of perennials, not the consolation prize, the real deal. Garden centers are trying to move inventory, so you're getting plants that have been sitting in pots all spring, nice and root-bound and ready to explode the moment you put them in the ground. And the soil, it's warm, like actually warm, which means roots aren't sitting in cold mud trying to figure out what's happening. They just go. So if you've been putting this off, stop waiting. Today we're going through 12 perennials that you can drop in the ground this month, and they will come back bigger and better every single year. And here's the part I really want you to hear, because I'm not just throwing a random list at you. These 12 plants solve 3 specific problems that wreck summer gardens for a lot of people. Weeds that take over before you even notice, heat that fries everything you worked so hard to grow, and deer or rabbits that show up like they own the place. Every plant on this list tackles at least one of those. Most of them tackle 2. A couple of them tackle all 3. We're also going to talk about how to actually plant in June without stressing the plants out, because the technique matters more in summer than any other time of year. Let's get into it. All right, first group. These are the ground cover plants that basically go to war against weeds on your behalf. You're not spraying anything, you're not pulling anything every weekend. You're just letting these plants spread out and smother anything that tries to compete. This is how you garden without making it your second job. First one is Geranium roseanne, and I want to be clear, this is not the red geranium in a pot that your grandma kept on the porch. That's a pelargonium, completely different plant. This is a true hardy geranium, Geranium roseanne specifically, and it is without question the best ground cover perennial I can point you to if you're only going to grow one. Here's why it beats everything else in this category. A lot of spreading plants spread by dropping seeds everywhere. You end up with plants in places you didn't want them, seedlings in your neighbor's yard. Roseanne doesn't do that. It spreads by sending out trailing stems that hug the ground, and those stems shade the soil so thoroughly that weed seeds just can't germinate underneath. It flowers from late spring all the way through fall in this violet-blue color that looks great with almost everything. It handles zones 4 through 8. Spread is about 24 to 30 inches, so one plant covers a decent patch. This is the one I'd tell you to start with. Next is a Juga black scallop, and if you have a spot under a big tree where nothing seems to grow right, this is your answer. It's a bugleweed variety with these really dark, almost burgundy purple leaves that look almost fake, they're so saturated. It does spread quickly, and I'll be upfront about that. It is aggressive, but it's the kind of aggressive you can manage. A quick pass with a shovel around the edges once in a while keeps it exactly where you want it. The big win here is that it genuinely thrives in shade and competes well with tree roots, which is the situation where most plants just give up. Zones 3 through 9, so it works almost everywhere in North America and most of Europe. Height stays around 3 to 6 inches. Spread can go 12 to 18 inches over a season.
Then there's creeping sedum, specifically the variety called Angelina. This one's for the spots that get beat up by sun and you forget to water. Angelina has this almost neon chartreuse color, kind of lime yellow, and it's a succulent, so it stores water in its leaves and basically laughs at drought. If you've got gaps between flagstones, gravel areas, a slope that's hard to water, rocky soil, this is what you put there. It fills in tight. It's low enough that nothing grows up through it, and the color is actually really striking in a way that doesn't look like you just settled for whatever would survive. Zones 3 through 9. And then, Lady's Mantle, Alchemilla mollis. This one is a little different from the others because people also grew it as an ornamental. The leaves are soft and kind of scalloped around the edges, and they have this thing they do after rain or early in the morning where water beads up on them like little mercury droplets. It looks genuinely cool. But the practical reason it's in this group is that the leaf canopy is wide and dense. It shades out weeds underneath really well. It's a beautiful plant that also works hard, which is exactly what we're looking for. Zones 3 through 7, height around 12 inches, spread up to 24 inches. Okay, second group. This is the deer and rabbit problem. And if you've dealt with this, you know how demoralizing it is to go out in the morning and find something you planted last week just gone, stripped down, like it was never there. These next four plants have something in common, which is that deer and rabbits find them either unpleasant to smell, terrible to taste, or both, and that's your protection. Catmint, variety called Walker's Low, scientific name Nepeta racemosa. The reason I keep saying Walker's Low specifically is because older catmint varieties have a tendency to flop over mid-season. They get leggy and fall apart and look messy. Walker's Low was bred to stay upright and compact. It tops out around 18 to 24 inches and actually stays there. Now, why don't deer eat it? There's a compound in the plant called nipetalactone. You might recognize that name because it's also the thing in catnip that makes cats lose their minds. Deer and rabbits hate it. They take one sniff and they move on. Meanwhile, you've got this plant covered in lavender blue flowers from early summer, and if you cut it back by about a third in July, you'll get a second flush of blooms in late summer. Zones 3 through 8. Lavender. And I want to steer you toward two specific varieties here, which are phenomenal and sensational. The reason is humidity. A lot of the classic lavender varieties, the ones you see on every list everywhere, they were developed in dry Mediterranean climates. You put them in the humid summers of the Midwest or the Mid-Atlantic or the Southeast, and they just rot at the root crown. Phenomenal and sensational were specifically bred to handle that humidity, and they genuinely hold up where other lavenders fail. Deer stay completely away from lavender. The scent is too strong for them, and these two varieties give you that same deer-repellent quality without dying on you in a wet July. Zones 5 through 9 for both. Russian sage, Perovskia atriplicofolia, variety called denim and lace. This one grows tall, we're talking 3 to 4 feet, with silvery stems and small lavender blue flowers that create this kind of hazy, airy look. It works well as a back-of-border plant, or even as a soft visual barrier. Deer don't touch it because the foliage has a really strong aromatic smell that they don't like at all. One thing worth knowing if you're planting in June is that you can actually pinch the tips back right now and it'll branch out and fill in more densely instead of growing straight up and getting floppy. Zones 4 through 9.
Agastache, variety Blue Fortune. Common name is hyssop, or sometimes people call it hummingbird mint. The foliage has this anise or licorice scent that pollinators absolutely love, but deer and rabbits want nothing to do with. Bees and butterflies will cover this plant all season, hummingbirds too if you're in the right area. It blooms from midsummer through fall in these upright blue-purple spikes. Zones 5 through 9, height around 24 to 36 inches. This is the plant that makes your garden look like you know what you're doing while also doing ecological work. Third group. These are the ones that handle full sun and real heat without flinching. Zones 5 and up in July and August can be brutal, and a lot of plants that look great in May start to look rough by midsummer. These don't. Echinacea, specifically the sombrero series. If you've grown purple coneflower before, you know it can get tall and a little floppy, and the flowers are nice but kind of sparse. The sombrero series was developed to fix all of that. Plants stay compact, around 18 to 24 inches. The stems are strong, and they bloom much more heavily and continuously than older varieties. Colors go from orange and red to yellow and coral, depending on which sombrero variety you pick. One thing I'd encourage you to do is leave the seed heads standing in fall and winter instead of cutting them down. Goldfinches and other birds feed on them through the cold months. Zones 4 through 9. Sedum autumn joy, Hyloteliphium herpsfreude. This is the one I'd call the truly zero-maintenance perennial. It is a succulent, stores water in its thick leaves, basically does not need you to pay attention to it. The one mistake people make with sedums is fertilizing them too much. Over-fertilized sedum gets floppy, and the stems can't support the flower heads. You really don't need to feed this one at all. It grows in tight, rounded clumps, tops out around 18 to 24 inches, and the flower heads start green in late summer and slowly turn to rose, and then copper, and then bronze through fall. Even in winter, the dried structure looks interesting standing in frost. Zones 3 through 9. Gaillardia, blanket flower. This is actually a North American native plant. It grew wild across the plains long before anyone was gardening anything. which means it was built for hot sun, dry conditions, and wind. It doesn't need much water once it's established. It doesn't need rich soil. It just needs sun. The flowers are these warm red and yellow and orange daisy shapes that bloom for months. If you have a tough spot where nothing seems to want to grow and you've kind of given up on it, try blanket flower. It tends to succeed where other things fail. Zones 3 through 10, depending on the variety. Now, here's the part most videos skip over, and it's actually the most important part when you're planting in June specifically. The technique is different from spring planting, and if you do it wrong, you're going to lose plants that should have made it.
Watering. Deep watering is completely different from shallow watering, and the difference matters a lot in summer. Shallow watering means you run a hose for a few minutes and the top couple inches of soil get wet. The roots follow that moisture and they stay near the surface. Then, when it gets hot and the surface dries out, those roots are exposed and the plant suffers. Deep watering means you soak the soil slowly and thoroughly so moisture penetrates down 6 inches or more, around 15 centimeters. The roots chase that moisture down into the cooler part of the soil where they're protected from heat. The way to do this practically is to water slowly for a longer time. Use a soaker hose or a drip system if you have one, or just set a regular hose to a trickle and let it run near the base of the plant for 20 to 30 minutes. Do this every 2 to 3 days for the first 3 weeks after planting. After that, these perennials will start to manage on their own. Mulch. This is not decorative. This is temperature regulation. Bare soil in direct sun can heat temperatures that are genuinely damaging to root systems. When you lay down a layer of wood chip mulch or bark mulch that's about 2 to 3 inches deep, roughly 5 to 7 centimeters, it can drop the soil temperature underneath by up to 10 degrees Fahrenheit compared to bare ground. That difference is the difference between a plant that establishes well and a plant that spends all summer just trying not to die. Keep the mulch a couple inches away from the actual stem of the plant so you don't trap moisture against the crown. Real quick on pet safety, because I know a lot of you have dogs and cats, and this comes up every time. The sedums, geraniums, catmint, lavender, coreopsis, gaillardia, and echinacea are all considered safe for dogs and cats. Agasteche is also generally fine. The ones to be more careful with are Russian sage and ayuga, which can cause mild stomach upset in dogs if they eat a lot of it. Nothing on this list is in the same category as, say, foxglove or autumn crocus, but it's worth knowing. One more thing I want to touch on before we wrap up, and that's how to keep the spreading plants from taking over more space than you want. Ayuga especially, and catmint to a lesser degree, will expand outward over time. The way to handle this without it becoming a problem is edging. Once a month from June through September, you take a flat spade or an edging tool and you just cut straight down along the border of wherever you want the plant to stay. You don't have to pull anything out, you're just severing the runners before they take root beyond your boundary. 10 minutes a month keeps everything exactly where you put it. And if you want to think about this economically for a second, because people don't always think about it this way, the average homeowner in the U.S. spends somewhere between $200 and $400 a year on annual flowers that die every winter, plus another $50 to $100 on herbicides and weed control products. These 12 perennials cost you once. They come back every year and they get bigger. The ground covers eliminate or dramatically cut down your weed control costs. The deer-resistant ones eliminate the replacement cost of plants that get eaten. Over 5 years, the math on perennials versus annuals plus chemicals is not even close. To bring it all together, you've got 4 ground covers that shut weeds out, 4 aromatic plants that keep deer and rabbits from helping themselves to your garden, and 4 sun-tough perennials that keep performing through the hottest part of the year. All of them can go in the ground in June. All of them come back next year. None of them are going to have you out there every weekend babying them. One thing I'd love to know is what hardiness zone you're gardening in. Drop it in the comments below, like Zone 6B or Zone 4, and I'll come back through and give you specific companion planting suggestions for your setup. Because some of these 12 pair together in ways that look incredible and reinforce each other, and I want to give you combinations that actually make sense for your climate, rather than a generic answer. Next video, we're taking these exact 12 plants and building a complete front yard design around them, showing you how to arrange them so the whole thing looks intentional and cohesive, instead of just random stuff you threw in the ground. That one's going to be good, so make sure you're subscribed.